The Office of the Special Prosecutor says it is investigating not less than 132 suspected corruption and corruption-related offences, which are at various levels of consideration. The OSP lists some of the cases to involve former Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Charles Edouard, whose case was referred for investigation by President Akufo-Addo following Tiger IPI's documentary, Galamsey Economy, as well as a probe into the estate of the late New Patriotic Party Kingpin Kwadwo Owusu-Afriyie, also known as Sir John, which is alleged to contain the controversial bequeathing of portions of state lands at Achimota Forest in Accra to his family members. These are more and more were contained in a half-year report shared by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Let's bring you highlights of that report. And just as you see on the screens, the office has concluded investigations into allegations of the use of public office profits against Charles Bithiu during his tenure as secretary to the erstwhile Inter-Ministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, arising from an investigative documentary titled Galamsey Fraud Part 1, published by Tiger IPI and the investigative journalist Anas Arimeya Anas. A special prosecutor or an authorized officer will issue directives and further action on the matter in due course. Those are excerpts of that report. On the case of Charles Edouard, upon a referral by President of the Republic by a letter dated 14th November, the office commenced investigation into suspected corruption and related offences in respect of Charles Edouard, a former Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance. The corruption allegations are contained in an investigative documentary titled Galamsey Economy, published by Tiger PI and investigative journalist Anas Arimeya Anas. Now, it says that there's also the office has commenced investigation into allegations of an attempt by an unnamed and wealthy businessman to bribe some members of the majority caucus of Parliament. The office triggered a liaison with the Office of the Speaker of Parliament in this regard. You may have followed that conversation where the members of Parliament accused the wealthy businessman of trying to influence majority members of Parliament not to call for the sack of Ken Ofori-Atta. And those are some of the cases that the special prosecutor is investigating. On illegal mining, it's targeted some officials of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources and Forestry Commission. It also targets the activities and expenditure of the dissolved Inter-Ministerial Committee on Illegal Mining, especially in respect of the seizure and management of excavators, machinery, road vehicles, and gold nuggets. The investigation further targets the activities of Akonta Mining Limited. You may have seen that there's a release by the coalition of media against illegal mining on that and other companies. Nationals of foreign countries allegedly involved in illegal mining and allegations of corruption, corruption-related offences against some municipal and district chief executives. Now, it says on the estate of Kwadwo Owusu-Afriyie, also known as Sir John, investigation is ongoing in respect of alleged improper acquisition of state-protected land at the Achimota Forest Enclave and the Sakumono Ramsar site by the deceased former chief executive of the Forestry Commission. Now, following the refusal by the High Court to affirm the freezing order issued by the Special Prosecutor, the office appealed to the Court of Appeal Civil Division Accra for a reversal of the decision of the High Court to facilitate the investigation and final resolution on the matter. So all these are cases that it is dealing with. It has one on ECG, it has one on Ghana Water Company. It says the office has commenced investigation in suspected corruption and related offences in respect of contracts awarded by Ghana Water Company Limited for the provision of goods and services to the following entities: Nayak 96 Enterprise, Dencom Construction, Edmonds Limited, Jomax, and a number of them, as you can see on your screens. It has done same for the ECG. Now there's one, Republic versus Ajeni Mboateneje, and another, the trial of former Chief Justice of Public Procurement Authority, and you know how that was unveiled. Anas our own Manasseh Azuriah-Wuni did a documentary, and so his brother-in-law is also pending before the Criminal Division of the High Court. Mr. J has been charged with 8 counts of using public office for profits and 9 counts of directly and indirectly influencing the procurement process to obtain an unfair advantage in the award of public contracts. While his brother-in-law has been charged with 1 count of using public office for profit, Ejenim Boateng himself has also been charged with 2 other counts for that. Now, the trial of Alexander Kwabena Safo Kantanka, he's a president nominee for the position of Chief Executive of Joabin Municipal Assembly in the Ashanti region. That's also pending before the Criminal Division of the High Court. Mr. Safo Kantanka has been charged with 26 counts of corruption in respect of a public election. So you can see a number of the cases that the special prosecutor is dealing with, and it's all contained in that half-year report that it's released on the work of the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Well, for the Special Prosecutor, although the country abhors corruption and corruption-related activities, he questions the country's commitment to fighting the menace. Speaking on Newsfile last week, Mr. Kisei Jabing himself expressed doubts about Ghana's preparedness to fighting corruption. Listen.
Fight against corruption. Let us see in real food. Let us see that in real support for the anti-corruption. Once again, from where I sit, I do not see much. And to the oversight institutions, and by this I'm referring to Parliament, I'm referring to the courts. Are we ready for the fight against corruption? Once again, I do not see much. How many referrals Parliament made, for instance, to the anti-corruption agency when they discover a work corrupt activity and corruption-related activities around us? I have not seen much. And the courts and fellow lawyers who have been ascended onto the bench, are we ready for the fight against corruption? Are we helping the anti-corruption agency? Are we partnering the anti-corruption agency? Are we putting the cases right? Or are we engaged once again in our own predilection? Or is it our design to frustrate the work of the anti-corruption agency? Are we ready for the fight against corruption? The civil society, are we pushing enough? Are we? Are we calling out people who should be responsible in the fight against corruption well? Are we calling out the government effectively? Are we calling out the oversight institutions effectively? Are we, civil society sphere, efficiently doing the work in respect of the fight against corruption? Ask ourselves. We should reflect on this. And the citizens, are we ready for the fight against corruption? I do not think so.
Well, let's stay longer on the subject of corruption and the Office of the Special Prosecutor, his work so far, and the relevance of the office itself in meeting its mandates as at now. Now, he himself, as you may have heard him speak right now, he says that he doesn't even have the confidence that the country really want to fight corruption. Edem Senanu is an anti-corruption campaigner. He joins me with, I'm grateful for your time, Mr. Senanu. First, let me gauge your mood on the half report that has been released by the special prosecutor, especially hearing from himself who casting doubt on whether the country really wants to fight corruption?
Well, thank you. It's always good when the mandated institutions of state are able to fulfill the obligations that they have been given. And under the law, it's required every 6 months to update the public as to what is going on. And so first, commendations that the Office of the Special Prosecutor has released in a timely manner this report so that we have a sense of what is going on. It's disappointing to the extent that the office has not received the kind of support it ought to have, especially when this is the brainchild of the current government and a flagship one at that. And you can see from the report that they have several cases, but if you want to talk about those that have active results to report on, just a few. Obviously, that is a measure of the level of staffing and capacity at the moment. It clearly demonstrates a lack of serious commitment to this fight on the part of government. And it will be good to unpack, especially when he's spoken to it, to find out which agencies in government are not, as it were, providing the level of collaboration to get speed on some of the things that would make the office more effective and more capable of executing its mandate. So those would be my initial thoughts.
Let's look at the about 132 cases that is currently before the Office of the Special Prosecutor to deal with. We have very sensitive cases. We can talk about the case of Sir John. We can talk about the case of Eduboahen. We can talk about the PPA boss and the decision by the High Court, a number of them. We can talk about Charles Bisu and all the issues. How does it come across to you that the Office of the Special Prosecutor hasn't been able to bring closure to these critical matters?
Well, I think that first of all, we need to be a little measured in our expectations. I think that it is good to have in the public space a listing of the various cases and activities that the office is undertaking. Because you see, whether we like it or not, there are those who are actively engaged in masterminding such things who will pay notice that this has not just been shrouded or hidden away, but such activities are now finding space under the OSP, and that the OSP is taking a keen look into them. And at some point, even if we don't have any cases that have been brought to closure, there will be closure, there will be sanctions, and potentially people will be going to jail, monies retrieved, etc. It begins to set the tone for people to be less ambitious in getting themselves engaged in such issues of graft. So, whereas we may not have as many cases concluded, persons found culpable and jailed and sanctioned, I think that just keeping these cases in the public space, giving us an update on how they are going, saying we are investigating and listing companies who may have gotten contracts by illegitimate means. All of that begins to send a certain message. What is important is that the support to get these cases done as quickly as possible. And I would, on that score, be hoping that the judiciary, the Chief Justice, Justice Enim Yeboah, or if you took Parliament, Mr. Alban Bagbin, should take note of what the OSP is saying. Create a platform to engage on what can we do better to help that office execute its mandate and do so more effectively and efficiently so that we can make some progress.
So before now, one of the issues we've been dealing with has been resourcing the Office of the Special Prosecutor so he can do his job well. We know that hasn't happened. we've been hit recently by the fact that the special prosecutor himself hasn't been paid for about 18 months, plus some of his officers. What does all of these do to the fight against corruption?
Obviously, it weakens the capacity. Let me point out that the level of remuneration of the office of the special prosecutor is not in doubt. It is of Article 71 reference benchmark, and so the quantum is not something that is debatable or in dispute. My understanding is that it's the salary structure for the rest of the staff, which in terms of the proposals has been a bit lower than the office expected, especially in the context of other public services. And so the challenge was that you cannot attract quality officers into the space, because already there are risks if you get into that kind of job and people know. So on one part, it's not that the government has not offered, but they've not been able to agree on what that level should be for and what the salary structure should be and the levels should be, because the special prosecutor is demanding more, and justifiably so, in order that he can attract the quality of staff required for that office. So it weakens. The bottom line is this. Ideally, we should not have a situation where the special prosecutor has to even be making these arguments or trying to make a compelling basis for these things. If this is a flagship initiative, government itself should understand the issues and be at the forefront of making sure that the resources are made available.
So you actually agree that the staff at the Office of Special Prosecutor should be well paid, just as is captured in that report, so that they are not compromised?
No, because otherwise then the people you are trying to catch sometimes are giving, they have 10 times, 20 times, 100 times more to give you. Some of the staff will just check their responsibilities. Because in any case, it's not just about doing the job. It's also about the risks that you put yourselves to. From time to time, some of them have to disappear because intelligence may say, somebody is thinking of doing something. So it's not a job that, is run of the mill and you should treat it with kids' gloves. So you ought to make sure the compensation is enough to make the people think that I want to do this and I'll do it with all my heart. I'll apply myself to it.
Ms. Ansen, let me ask you this final one, and it's my favorite question. Do you see that there's a political will to actually fight corruption?
Not at the moment. And I say that in the context of the campaigning in 2015, 2016, and what we're told. In fact, I'm dreading the next year or two when we get back into the political season. I'm thinking that all of us as citizens, media, civil society, need to take a magnifying glass to these politicians who just come and say anything. It's like it's a business for them. They invest, and then immediately after, they don't care about the aspirations of the people or the development agenda. No, I don't see the political will. There probably are a few people who are serious about this. And my advice to OSP and the rest of us is let's identify those who can be part of a coalition of the willing to bring change. Let's try and engage those at the highest echelons of the three arms of government who we think are committed, and see how we can get new strategies to deal with this. Otherwise, it's a slippery slope, and we seem to be running down that slope without much work to try and restrict the slide into total chaos and more corruption.
Mr. Tenano, I'm grateful for your time this morning. He's an anti-corruption campaigner. He's co-chair of the Coalition Against Corruption, and he's been speaking anti-corruption movement, citizens movement against corruption, and he's been speaking about the half-year report which was produced and published by the Office of the Special Prosecutor.